Hey, this is Cam, and welcome to another episode of the Quarantine Series. I'm here with great friends, Lynn Lomax and Tracy Howe. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but we're going to have a little bit of a discussion around faith and the YMCA and how that works together. But Lynn, introduce yourself and tell about your career.
Thanks, Cam. Hey, and before I start, I want to just mention too, I've had the pleasure of, I think, watching most of, if not all of these so far, and I just commend you, Cam. They've been great. I've really enjoyed seeing some old friends, seeing some folks that I have great respect for, and great information they continue to share. But I'm Lynn Lomax with the High Point YMCA. I've been in the YMCA right about 38 years now, coming up on 38 years in August. Started in Rowan County, Salisbury. I was there for 10 years. Took a job with Andy Calhoun in Charlotte in the early 90s, and was planning to be there about 3 years, and ended up being there 25 years with Andy in several different roles. And then about 3 years ago was fortunate enough to come to the High Point YMCA and be part of this organization. So been a great time doing it, and really have enjoyed my career. So thank you.
Grace.
Thank you, Cam. I concur with Lynn, and Lynn, you're knocking it out of the park in High Point. Way to go. And but first and foremost, Cam, thank you for the series. Thank you for your leadership. So because you did the series, and just coming up on November 5th, I am Cam for president. I don't know if you see it backwards. So that is my write-in vote. So Cam, you got my vote. Thank you. I respect you. You're a great leader here in this movement. But
thanks for saying that, but my staff can edit that out later. So.
Tracy Howe, I'm the COO of the YMCA of the Triangle, and been really with this organization for the past 44 years. I started at Camp Seagull. I was a camper at Camp Seagull from Indianapolis, Indiana. My mom drove me all the way down to Arapahoe, North Carolina, and I stayed 5 weeks. She wanted to get rid of me for the summer. But I fell in love with Camp Seagull, and then I came back as a staff person, a camp counselor, and Doug McMillan was my head counselor. And so a couple years later, he hired me as the youth director, and today he's been my boss for the past 38 years. So that is my journey.
That's great. You know, I started doing these kind of as just being fun and playful, but really wanted the Quarantine Series to just kind of inspire people and get people to think and do different things. And so I appreciate your support and comments. And somebody other than my mother watches it, you know, so that's always impressive that somebody does that. But y'all are two great faith leaders, and we've been in our careers, we've talked a lot about this and shared, and y'all are leaders not only in your own lives, but just nationally in this movement. And for some that are listening, may not know that there was a period, and Tracy, you can give the dates, where there was an organization called the John 1721, and we had conferences and really had a lot of energy. But share a little bit about how that started and galvanized itself.
Yeah, thanks, Cam. You know, back in the mid-90s, I knew a guy named Eric Ellsworth. He was on the Quarantine Series.
Yeah. Everybody
knows Eric, and we just created this just fast friendship, and we both had a heart to see, you know, how do we encourage one another in Christ? This is a missional movement. How do we encourage one another to put Christian principles into practice? And, you know, he's a man of action. I was a man of action, and, you know, we prayed about it and recruited his friend, Sean Allison, and then Jay Lippy kind of joined us and had this vision of how do you rally folks around a conference. You know, number one, to meet others who are Christ believers in the movement, and we can encourage each other and be inspired by, you know, the spoken word, and have great, you know, godly speakers, and we can, you know, rally around what are you doing around the Christian mission in your part of the country, or your branch, or in your association. So, and then we also had this vision around the Dunamis newsletter. And so how did we put a newsletter back in the day when we didn't have the internet? How did we put out this newsletter that really could encourage folks with news, you know, articles around keeping the faith in the YMCA movement. So really, too, trying to put on a conference and trying to deliver a newsletter to encourage, to lift up the C in the YMCA, to rally, to learn from each other. And so we started in 1999, really, I think the year 2000, after I went to the Willow Creek Leadership Summit and got me inspired. And so we decided to launch the conference. I think we had like 80 people in Nashville YMCA. That's where we met Jeff Jowdy. They were supportive. And we had Michael Card and some really great, incredible speakers. And that's what got us going. And then one thing led to another. The newsletter was really impactful for a lot of people. And then 2008 happened. The economy kind of went down, and we've kind of sunsetted it. And then it morphed into the U.S. Mission Network. And so from there, we sunsetted the U.S. Mission Network, and now we are talking about how do we have an online portal to really help and encourage people through the mission of the YMCA. So it's a little bit of background.
Yeah, great 8-year run. And one of my board members in Nashville just had a transformational moment that he still references. And he became a board chair and just a great supporter of our YMCA because of that Nashville conference that I begged him to attend with me. So
yeah, really quick, the Walker Foundation really support us. That was the foundation that supported CLCs, and so they really helped, seed this conference and the Dunamis and the John 1721 movement.
Yeah, hey, Cam, can I add a little bit to Tracy's comments, because I was fortunate enough to be involved as a participant more than anything. Of course, I was working with Eric at the time. And the thing I remember as a participant of that conference, and Tracy, you mentioned two of them. One, it was such an encouragement. It was an encouraging, and again, you could tell it was a bit of a spinoff of the Global Leadership Conference, and that was clear. It was inspiring. But I think what continued to draw people back and continued to get my attention was two things. One is it was simple. You guys didn't make it complicated. You made putting the C back in our YMCAs, or putting the C in your YMCA, whatever the case might be. It's not brain surgery. It wasn't complicated, and y'all helped elevate that. In fact, in one of the ways, the other part that I was so impressed by with is you mentioned you brought in some other speakers. You brought in local businessmen, in some cases not necessarily local businessmen, but it was men of faith who talked about how they put Christ in their world and in their business, for-profit business. And to me, it became, the light was, wow, if they can do that at Krispy Kreme, at Coca-Cola, those might be, surely I've got the Christian name it's in my name. I've got to be able to do that. So for me, I like the simplicity of it, but at the same time, it was very bold and very straightforward, but it, again, very simple, and ways to do it. It wasn't, here's the 1, 2, 3 notebook on how to do it. It was inspirational through listening to others do it and taking nuggets of information from those and then applying it to your own personal life, quite honestly, and your YMCA career.
Absolutely, Lynn.
I want to think historically. I'm going to go off script a little bit. So when I interviewed Andy Calhoun and Eric Ellsworth, they referenced Dr. Limbert and Paul Limbert, but movement-wide, who have been some of the, and it can even be recent today, who are some of the drivers of the faith, just been leaders in the faith? And I consider you two there, along with Eric and Andy, but who else? Who are some of the other names?
Well, let me go back in history a little bit. My passion around C in the YMCA was driven by, understanding who John R. Mott was. And of course, he wrote these lessons learned on his retirement speech, these 15 things that he learned. And number one, he said, Jesus Christ is the foundation, right? And study and promote the use of the Bible. And this is a YMCA leader, a world leader in the movement that really inspired me. And then his third one was the discipline of prayer is essential. So his top three, Jesus Christ is foundation, study and promote the use of the Bible and the discipline of prayer has really been in my DNA because of those words as a leader in this movement. And I think it's paid off, and all glory to him.
Cam, it became really real to me, I would say, and coming up in, as you have mentioned earlier, Rowan County, my first 10 years, and certainly knew the mission was important to me, knew it was the reason it became more of a calling to me even there. But the first time it really became real and the light went off again for me is when I went to Charlotte and got to know Harry Brace. Because all of a sudden, it wasn't just somebody that talked about it. In fact, Harry, I was fortunate enough to work with him about 10 years before he unfortunately passed at the Y, in fact. But watching Harry, the way he presented himself, he really was a man who his actions spoke much louder than his words, even though at the right time and the right moment, he would say the right things as well. But that's when I went, wow, that's how you do this Christian mission thing in the YMCA. It's part of what he does. It wasn't an initiative he took. It was just part of the why. And he made sure it was part of everything that we were doing. And so for me, it was Harry Brace. And as you mentioned, Andy Calhoun is one of those that he obviously a disciple of Harry, so to speak, was inspirational to me, and Eric Ellsworth. So I had three great ones right there as part of my career. And then I look at people like Tracy. I will tell you, I'll be quick to tell you, you said that earlier, but Tracy is somebody, I watched Eric and Tracy work together, and it was inspiring for me just to watch and observe and see how they went about, again, their careers.
Yeah. EJ, Tim Joyce would be another one I would think I'd put in there with you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and for me, having Andy Calhoun and the Fellowship of Believers, UCAM and Lynn, Tim Joyce, James White, Bernie Whitson, Tom, all these people that the Fellowship of Believers really, encouraged me and supported me and nurtured, I think, me just by example. And then to this day, I'm calling Lynn every other week just to talk to see how we're doing. And, we talk to see how you're doing.
Yeah.
And so forth. So it really has blessed me over my 38-year career.
Yeah, and I engaged James White last week with a couple of my volunteers in a discussion. He's such a brilliant guy. He does, and it just inspires me, gets me fired up when we're done. Is there a need, or how would the structure look for a national, is there for a role or nationally around faith? How would that look, or is there a need for it? Is it just up to every individual YMCA?
I'll be glad we're looking at each other. I think the question, to answer that question, is always yes. There's always a need. Anything you can do to inspire the Christian mission, whether it's at a national level or local, is yes. However, I will say, and I think the U.S. Mission Network, Tracy mentioned a while ago, was on the right track with this in their role. And I was fortunate enough to serve with Tracy on that board. We wanted to be a resource for YMCAs. We didn't want to go to YUSA and say, let us in, we should be doing this for, we basically went to YUSA and said, we're not asking you to give us any special, privileges or anything like that, but let us be your resource around the Christian mission. And we had a lot of YMCAs that came through the U.S. Mission Network just for information, just for insight, just for direction. It was unbelievable how many people would call and say, I want to be more about the mission. Can you tell me how to do it or what that looks like? And we were able to, I think we did a lot of that, a lot yet to be done in that regard. But to me, that was the beauty of it. And I think that's the right model for what we need to be. And there needs to be, I do think there needs to be a national organization. I don't know that it has to be driven out of YUSA. I think YUSA has to come alongside it and be supportive of it, not any more than they are their other parts of their organization. So to me, yes, but I don't want it to sound like it's all on YUSA to do more with that, because I think they got a lot on their plate.
What about you, Trace?
Yeah, so, I think, Lynn, thank you for that. there is a place. So right now we're more from the U.S. Mission Network. We sunsetted that name, and we're still trying to figure this out. I think we're still wandering in the desert because faith is such a broad thing in the YMCA. But right now, what we have is we're trying to create a virtual portal where you can be encouraged, that you can find resources and connections, and we're establishing that as we speak. And there's some really great leaders like David Newman, Janella Nelson, and Josh Heaston that's really leading that movement. There is a rise of chaplains and Christian emphasis directors around the country, and that soothes my soul because that's great. And they get together once a year and encourage each other, and that continues to grow. There's a new program called On Principle where trying to find 12 leaders that are under the age of I think 40, have at least 20 more years in the YMCA. So that excludes us, you all. But to really minister to them and encourage them in their leadership and their walk with Christ. So a lot of good things are bubbling up, and so I do think there's still a place. Cam, we're a Christian organization. Now that means a whole lot different around the country. But when you say to put Christian principles into practice, I mean, that's what we're trying to do. And I think here at the YMCA, the Triangle, and as I've kind of grown, it's more of a broad sea, and it's a open your arms wide open, and that's what Jesus would do. And so, how do we be more welcoming and caring, and kind of a Bob Goff fan, more loving and the acts of love, and it's not about telling all the time, but it's wide open and doing the hard work of caring for our members and our communities, and sometimes crossing over and doing the hard work in the social unrest that we live in. But that's our role as a YMCA. We're a broad YMCA, broad sea YMCA, with our arms wide open, and
to me,
still a place for that.
Yeah, to me, with the social unrest, I think that's the core of our work. I mean, I think that's why the C needs to be bigger for us as a movement. I mean, I think that ought to be why we're driving and talking and working and doing in those areas, is just our faith. I mean, it should lead us to that, as you said, broad, open arms. And my passion is, and what I worry about is that, are we developing young leaders around, young faith leaders in our movement? And you said under 40, but I mean, being 22-year-old program director and having it all around me within my association with Bob Rule and High Point, and with, in that entire association land, just believed. But it was at all the conferences, it was so big, and I was able to have mentors that developed me throughout my career. And so I hope we can do that for the future of our movement, that we're passing this on, that there's other people like you guys that have a heart for it.
Yeah. So how do you nurture these up and coming leaders who have a faith in Christ and rally them to be the leaders that they need to be to the glory of God? So
and it's challenging, Cam. To your point, we grew up or came through the Y at a time when you had the Bob Rules, the Charlie Johnsons, the
Tony Adams.
I'm sorry,
Tony Adams.
Tony Adams.
Who that's what you saw every conference you went to. So I don't want to say the path was easy to get there, but I do think the path was more obvious. That is a good path, and that is the right direction. And we're all very blessed that our Ys have grown incredibly in these years. But with that comes additional challenges and more question marks that folks face. So I think that may be the most concerning part to me, is how do we pass that along, and I don't know that I'm doing as good of a job as those before me. I'm standing on the shoulders of those before me. Am I doing that as good of a job now for that next generation? And that's still a question for me.
Cam, one way we do it, I know we all do it, is, again, those Hall of Famers that you just listed, that they role modeled their faith. And so I know where I sit here in the YMCA Triangle is before every meeting, prayer is a must here at our YMCA. So every meeting we have, whether it's 3 or 100, we pray, and that's what John R. Mark said. Prayer is essential to do this work. And one of our character traits is, the foundation is faith in God. And but we also are welcome to anybody, whatever they are on their faith journey. We want to be welcoming and loving in the name of Christ. And so, how do you teach young leaders the touch and timing and navigate that? Because I think we're missionaries, and sometimes you have to hold your tongue, and sometimes you just have to listen and not speak, and sometimes all you have to do is pray and be behind the scenes and be that servant leader and let your light shine and let the salt come out as we lead this organization.
And Cam, if I can go back real quick, because you said something that I think is really important, and we talked about this in High Point as a staff when COVID first started, and I have to be in line to do a devotion with a staff meeting that morning, and it was right as it was beginning to be real for everybody, and I shared with the staff, my thought was, I think we may be about to be given the greatest opportunity we've had in our organization in 50 years. We can be the light on the hill for the community, for everybody. We have that opportunity. Now, we can choose to get upset that membership's fallen off, that programs that we don't like the way the decision was made about when we're going to open or not open, or we can step up and be the light in the community in the way we respond to that and how we respond to that. And I believe we're doing that. I certainly hope we're doing that, but I still believe that God has given us an opportunity to be a Y like no time in my career. And, I remind myself every day and remind my staff, the Y started as a Bible study, guys, and prayer is a powerful tool. So we can be, that's one of the ways that we can do it. It starts there, as Tracy, you've already mentioned, but then how are we responding to the community, and how are we being that light for the community in our actions, not just in our words? So, and I still believe that opportunity has been given to us.
It is. So
And that
great.
opportunity, Lynn and Cam, might be not 1,000 people, not 100 people, not 50. It might be just that one.
We won.
And I think as I get older as a leader, my young warrior back in the day, I wanted thousands, be on stage, but backing up as a leader now, maybe it's just that one. How can I encourage that one and be the light? And Lynn, you're so right. People are hurting. How can we strengthen our faith so we can encourage and serve one another and give them a lift during this time of hardship?
I think, and we've done like you guys are all doing incredible work right now. Cam, I realize we're not even giving you a chance to ask questions. We're just rambling.
About you. It's about you.
This is normal. This is normal.
One of the most significant things that we're doing in High Point is we're still calling our active older adults every week and just saying, how are you doing? Mm-hmm. Can I help you with anything? Can we get something to you? Is there, and we're praying for you, and God bless you. In the next week, let us know. I still think there's more going on in that than we will ever
exactly
really understand.
Well said, Lynn. Well said.
Well, I appreciate you guys. You two are giants, I think, in the movement around faith and what you've done in your careers and set the example. And I hope if you're watching this, that one, you're inspired. That's what the whole quarantine series is about, is to inspire you. But I hope you share it with your friends. And if you want to be more involved with your faith and the why and the movement, shoot me an email and I can connect you with these guys and other leaders, and let's strengthen our YMCAs. And I hope that in the end, we'll just be salt and light. And I'm gonna say, Laura Hauser used to work for me early in my career, and she'd send me these notes and emails, and she'd always go, Cam, you need to be salt and light, be salt and light. And so I think that's the challenge for us in our movement. Let's just be salt and light to people. So you two guys are.
Amen. Thank you, Cam.
Thank you guys so much
God bless.
for everything.
Thank you, Cam. Good to see you.